There you have Bonnie and Clyde on screen. We have it up there because the recent surge in cybercrime turns out are making folks like that a thing of the past, or more so than usual. Bank robberies are plummeting as criminals seem to wise up to the fact that heists just don't pay like they used to. Bank holdups have been nearly cut in half over the past decade to 5.1 robberies per 100 banks in 2011. Though the nationwide crime rate is dropping, the decline in bank robberies far exceeds the decline in other crimes, according to FBI data. Jack Nikas joins us from Chicago. Jack, it turns out that's not where the money is.
Good morning. No. So as we've seen the transformation of the monetary environment from bank branches, bank tellers, and migrating onto ATMs and online transactions, bank criminals have largely followed with that trend as well. And obviously, over the past decade, we've seen cybercrime surge. And what's interesting to look at the FBI data that, meanwhile, these bank robberies have been plummeting.
Speaking of which, let's just some preliminary 2012 figures released last week show the lowest tally in decades, really. 3,870 bank robberies last year, down from 5,000 a year earlier. So it just keeps plummeting.
Right, exactly. This is a continued trend. Those are still preliminary numbers, but basically all the branches have reported. So we're looking at the lowest tally in maybe ever, at least as far as the FBI is correct.
Now, Jack, I wouldn't think that the type of person to rob a bank would be the same type of person that's going to commit a more sophisticated cybercrime. And yet, is that really what's happening? Is some of the folks that would commit the one crime are actually moving higher up the food chain, as it were?
Well, it's a good question, and there's some debate here among the bank security experts and former FBI agents and some of the experts I spoke to on this. A lot of them say, well, the more sophisticated of these criminals, and especially the younger ones, the ones who would have been going into bank crimes, they're now more inclined to rob a bank online rather than at a physical branch. So there's almost been this generational shift. However, others, especially those in law enforcement, say these aren't the same criminals, and in many ways, this is because of tougher federal sentencing laws for bank robbers and also better bank security.
What are some of the most common cybercrimes when it comes to robbing banks?
What often happens is the cyber criminals can go into a customer's checking account, and often what they do it to small businesses which have larger, piles of cash basically to take from, but less security than a big company. And they go into small business checking accounts and pull money that way. And this is something that actually targets customers more than banks oftentimes. So it seems with this shift, it may actually be going towards your average Joe rather than a big U.S. bank.
Okay. With that in mind, how can individuals protect themselves?
Well, in most cases, it's keep close track of your finances, and also in most cases, the banks will back you up on this sort of stuff. So make sure you report anything early.
Okay. And they're getting into your accounts with things like phishing attacks and emails. Is that a common tactic, or are there others that people aren't aware of?
I think there's a wide variety of tactics, and including those that we haven't probably fully detected either. But there's also just the very fundamental, basic ones as well, from phishing scams on emails, scams on Craigslist, and that's sort of all part of cybercrime. So there's certainly a growing industry which has been well documented over the past decade. Okay,
but lest we forget, there are some bank robbers making a name for themselves. There's one you mentioned in your story, Ray Bandit out of Illinois.
Yeah, this guy apparently had been going on a spree. Apparently he's been linked to 17 banks, allegedly in 7 states over the past year or so, and in every case he's wearing a pair of Ray-Ban style sunglasses. So authorities nicknamed him the Ray Bandit, and that somewhat helped get him caught, and he was caught last month. So there still is definitely some folks who see this as a quick way to pay. And the problem is probably a lot of them could get away with it, but almost all bank robbers turn out serial robbers, so they keep doing it until they get caught.
I think a guy's smart enough. You see, again, not smart enough to pull off cybercrime, because why is he wearing the same pair of sunglasses to every robbery if that's his... Anyway, that's another question for another segment. Thank you so much for joining us, Jack. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.